out of patriarchy, which is something that we have really helped perpetuate in many of our religions. So I wanted you to see my young folks that I work with. There are about 35 current writers. That means they're finishing off a year of work around the country. There are 170 in all. 80% of the writers go on to lead or facilitate work within nonprofits or churches around their particular area of interest. That may be immigration rights or women's rights or gay rights or whatever they're working on, but that's what they do. I am 58. So for just a moment, I want you to imagine what it is like to work almost exclusively with people who are 18 to 35. I am younger now than I ever planned to be. I have a whole different lexicon. I have a different kind of energy, and I like different music. Make sense? All right. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's an incredible honor to be here in a place where there are things like an office of inclusion. Most of the universities I visit, that is not the case. And it's an amazing thing to be in a place and realize a room of people are gathering to think about these things together, and they've been doing it for more than 90 years. I'm from a part of the country, Abilene, Texas, the third most conservative city in America, according to LA Times. 90 years ago, we were mostly still pulling out our 6 guns to threaten someone who was putting barbed wire around our cattle. We weren't having this kind of discourse. And I love where I'm from, but that's another one of those head spaces that I have to really shift in when I come to a place like this. So thank you for having me. I like to think about finding our faith and putting it into action a little bit like trying to land on a desert island when you're stranded in the sea. There are at least 360 points upon which you could land. You may land there coming across a coral reef, scraped. You may land there in a turbulent surf thrown up on the beach, your lungs full of water. You may land there in a peaceful inlet that you found. You may land there and discover that there is a waitstaff person with a pina colada and a comfortable chair, just for you. However you land in your faith space that becomes your faith space, what I think matters is what you do after you land. I don't really care whether I'm Presbyterian or Lutheran or Baptist or Church of Christ or Episcopalian. What matters is after I'm there, what do I do? I have some choices, don't I? I can stay in the comfortable chair. I can ask the wait staff to bring me another drink. I can ask them to put up some gates so no one else who's getting tossed in by the ocean will come. Or I can get up out of my chair and walk off into the mangrove jungle to see if there's anyone else I might want to know and meet. There's a fine line between fear and excitement. Once I make my way somewhere else, then I have to open myself up to new experience. That's what I want to talk about a little bit today. In the church I grew up in the Church of Christ in the South, women are in submission to men. And that was appropriate and acceptable. There was no questioning of that, and I never questioned it until I was 27 years old. I was, however, aware that it was a problem within me spiritually. So here's that story. 5th grade, 10 years old, Up until 5th grade, 10 years old, promotion Sunday to 6th grade, girls were allowed in my church to lead singing, just like boys, in our classroom. We sang only a cappella, so you had to learn how to find pitch without a pitch pipe, how to stay in tune with the music. I loved it. I thought I was going to be the song leader of my church. That was my vision. My favorite song was Trust and Obey. Anybody know it? I had no idea that that was not a possibility. No one had actually said to me, girls can't be song leaders in church. And even though I never saw anyone but men in front of the church, I didn't know. So on Promotion Sunday, Mrs. Walter Adams came and said, girls, we're going to go to this part of the building after this Sunday for Sunday school. Boys, you're going to go to this part of the building for Sunday school. We didn't question that either, although no one had told us why we were going in two different directions. They wouldn't have, because you know it had something to do with sex. So we got to our classroom, and we were going to practice singing like we always did and leading. And Mrs. Adams said, no, you can't do that anymore. Only the boys lead singing. Now, I don't remember whether at 10 I thought, I don't think that's right. I suspect I didn't, because I didn't question anything. But what I did feel in here is loss. Loss. That was my spiritual direction, and now it was no direction at all. Fast forward, I married a Church of Christ minister. I had my children. I taught Sunday school. I helped him start a bus ministry. I did everything right that I was supposed to do, because that's what I knew. I loved my church. When we divorced, I couldn't participate in my church in the same way anymore, and so I went to choose another church for my children, the most liberal church I could think of, the Southern Baptist. Well, I couldn't go to the Episcopalian church. According to what I knew from my church, they drank. Okay? I couldn't go to the Presbyterian church. They had this thing about election or something. That was all messed up in my mind. The Baptist, however, had instrumental music and a central organizing body, but they were still evangelical. So that worked. Liberal evangelicals. I joined the church. They required me to have alien immersion, which I thought was very strange, but I did not question. And I stayed a Baptist until I came out as a gay person. I then discovered the Southern Baptists are not quite as liberal as I thought. And once again, that you couldn't be in a position of leadership or teach in a Southern Baptist church if you were openly gay. So we made our little trek off to another place. I tell you these stories only to say that we form our ideas of what faith is somewhat based on where we land or where we're born, somewhat based on the decision we make whether to stick right there and follow all the rules, or whether we decide to get up, walk out, and meet a few more people, and our reactions to that once we get there. But whatever we do, if we associate those things with loss, there's a price to pay.